For those who haven't joined one of our webinars before, I'm Tim Barclay. I'm the CEO of Appello, and I've had that privilege for the last nearly 4.5 years, and joined by a couple of colleagues. And Mark, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Mark Stratford. I'm the commercial director at Appello. I've only been at Appello just over a year, so I'm still the new boy here, but I've worked in the telecare, social care industry for nearly 30 years.
And hi all, I'm Ian Hockings, I'm Head of Marketing at Appello. I'll be monitoring the Q&A functionality today, so if you want to ask a question, use the Q&A that you'll find at the bottom of your screen.
I would be absolutely astonished if we've got anybody on who hasn't joined a Zoom call over the course of the last 15 months or so. You've probably spent some of your social time and a lot of your work time using a combination of Teams, Zoom, etc. But nonetheless, we really appreciate everybody making the time and taking the opportunity to join us. We've got some really good content for you today, and I think hopefully you'll find this very useful and informative. It's part of a series of webinars we've been doing based on key themes that are happening in the technology-enabled care sector. And one of the areas that Appello are proud to be a leader on is both the overall innovation and particularly where digital innovation is concerned. And taking that a step further, we've ploughed a lot of time, energy, resources and development into making all of those innovations as accessible and as seamless as possible. And we do that by using cloud technology. Now there's a lot of I guess there's a lot of buzz and hype about what is cloud and what isn't, and actually what does it mean. So we're going to try and unpack a little bit of that today, some practical things about how cloud-based technologies can be a real benefit to housing providers and local authorities, and also some illustrations of the types of differences they can make. So the agenda for today, Ian, if you can just move us on. The agenda for today is a quick overview on digital transformation and how that's having a bearing and has an opportunity to have a bearing in technology-enabled care, and then an overview of what cloud is, how it has an opportunity to create even more service and value for housing providers, local authorities and their end customers, as well as how do you actually go about accessing it, how do you go about embracing it, and what do you need to consider when you're doing so. As an important starting point, it's worth thinking about what we mean by digital transformation, because it's in the tech sector, it is a very widely used phrase, and it's usually used to mean the transition from analog to digital services in telecare devices, whether those are warden call systems or whether those are dispersed alarms. But actually, as we illustrate on the next slide, this is a much broader theme in terms of what digital transformation can be. Yes, of course, it can be about the technology and the opportunity to replace those beige plastic boxes with something more interactive, less stigmatizing. But also, digitalization and digital transformation can be about how you entirely relook at the business or aspects of the business, how you make it more easy for customers to interact with you, and how you make it more insightful for your colleagues to be able to understand where their priorities are and how they execute them. And that whole move to a paperless environment that is available across multiple devices and gives collaboration opportunities between colleagues and customers. All of those are part of the wider scale of digital transformation. So in terms of how all of this fits together, when you look at the number of different possible enablers of digital transformation, and we haven't listed all of them here by any stretch of the imagination, But there are a number of cogs in the wheel of transformation, all of which play a part. And at any one moment in time, organizations will be looking at some components of these and working out how they can create an ecosystem which leads to better living experiences for residents and service users and end customers. And if I just pick a couple of examples of here, some are really widely known, and we're in the midst of using a good example of this today in terms of internet up in the top left hand, and online services on the right hand. Although online services cover such a wide range of different capabilities now, and I think I'd be surprised if anybody on this call doesn't work for an organization who haven't extended what they do for their customers into being a more online, not by any means necessarily completely online, but more ability to access online services. As we evolve as a society, there is a potential for some of these themes to have an even greater impact on how we deliver services and how those services are received. Big data is talked about a great deal, so is artificial intelligence, and the nirvana of a Internet of Things enabled home, which is connected by the internet, which collects really insightful, useful data about the residents and about the components of the property, be that heating, lighting, boilers, etc., and then uses AI and machine learning to start to analyze patterns and predict outcomes. All of those are available both here and now, but also over the months, years ahead, will evolve into how, for example, they inform and make smart home automation and smart living services actually do things which are practical. And we've seen examples in society, admittedly at a very small scale, where robotics can be included in that whole picture to deliver a really transformational living experience. But all of that, of course, is quite future looking. It is, though, underpinned by some glue, and that glue is two things. One is internet, whether that's mobile internet or whether that's physical internet through the broadband or high capacity lines networks, and then a cloud capability, which is a location where all of those different pieces of insight, data, AI can be integrated and used to inform the next steps of any of those actions. And being on the journey towards an end point is made so much easier if you have the building blocks for scalability and foundation. So nobody's anticipating that over the course of the next year or two, housing providers will have artificial intelligence, robotics, big data, home automation running at major scale. That's just not the direction of travel, and nobody would pretend that it was. However, to be able to embark on a digital transformation journey, which over the course of the 5, 10, 20 years ahead might have those as outcomes, it's vital to have the right building blocks at the heart of it. And what we're going to try and talk about now over the course of the next few slides is what some of those building blocks look like and why they're so important to be in an evolved cloud world rather than in a traditional on-premise world. So Mark, I'm going to hand over to you for a couple of slides to give our audience a flavour of what we mean by cloud and what are some of the advantages of it.
Okay, thanks, Tim. So the first thing, cloud refers to servers that are accessed over the internet, but it's not just servers. So these are multiple servers and databases and storage that's held in industrial, commercial grade data centers, distributed across the UK, across Europe, and across the world, actually. And the whole point about these data centers is this isn't a remote desktop. This isn't a kind of Citrix thin client connection into a server in our server room. This is the ability to access scalable architecture through the internet, so that it means that as the demand of digital strategies and technologies move onwards, the architecture, the power that we need to consume these services is scalable. So we don't add another server, we just add more processor power, or we add more memory, or we add more storage. And that becomes scalable dynamically, so it's instant. So what happens with cloud computing is, as my demands get greater, then the requirements, the resources that are required to service those demands are automatically given to me. All right, I pay a little bit more for it, but that's the whole point of a cloud-based service. So I can use that demand, I can consume these services very, very easily. I don't have to ring up my service provider and say, I need some more processor power, or I need another server, I need a little bit more memory, because all of that is part of the service that they deliver for me. And although they've been around for, just over a decade now, these things have evolved along with the services that we want to kind of consume from them. So a lot of this is automated, and a lot of this is driven for us by our service providers. And they're the experts in doing this. We're experts in software, in service provision. They're experts in delivering those services. So we'll go to the next slide. So I just thought we pick out just a few bits, just a few points about what makes cloud different and why it's important in our journey moving forward. And the first bit, and I'll touch on a couple of bits of security in this, but the first bit I'll touch on is cloud-based solutions are always more secure. Now, you can have a very secure on-premise solution, but it might cost you several £1 million to do that. And you're permanently defending these solutions. Now, the whole point about a cloud-based solution is because it's in a secure data center, it's always defended by experts, it's protected by multi-million-pound defense systems. And when I say defense systems, I'm talking about cyber defense in terms of electronic defense, but I'm also talking about systems that are bomb-proof, that have access control. That means I can, even as a authorized user, I can only access the data center with an appointment. I can only see this, I can only go to the server room or to the room where my equipment is stored. So that there's a lot more to the security around this than just the cyber security, but that's really, really important. Moving on, it's about access to this. So if we think about cloud access, this is internet connection. Now, it might be a smart client, it might be a browser, but essentially it's a robust connection from the media point that suits me. So what's best for my business is how I access the clouds. I don't have a special client, I don't have anything special to do. I just have a really secure way of accessing that service. I've talked a little bit about scalability, and that's really, really important. And as more services are unlocked, as you expand the service offering to your customers, as you consume more services, you don't need to worry about the service slowing down, how much more storage I need, because it's all done for you. It's all dynamic. And that leads in quite nicely to looking at the continuity of service. So again, in our world, if take a monitoring center, for example, a monitoring center right now, an on-prem monitoring center has servers, it has a UPS, might have a generator. There's all sorts of things we've got to think about to continue the service in the event of the power outage. How long does my UPS last? If I have a problem, what's my data backup? How do I restore? How often do I take backup? So typically, in a monitoring center alone, it might just be 24 hours. Well, moving forward, because more and more services are consuming more and more data, 24 hours isn't acceptable. In fact, sometimes an hour isn't acceptable. But in a cloud service environment, A, there's multiple data sources, but B, this data is backed up very, very regularly. There's really clear data restore points. That means that if there's a problem, if my database becomes corrupt, I'm not looking at a 24-hour restore anymore. I'm looking at 30 minutes or an hour. And I think that's a really important thing that gets missed sometimes when we think about cloud computing. And the last piece on this slide is, as tech services create more data, as we expand our capabilities, then, enabling the storage and the collation of this data is going to be really, really important. So we get to the point where we have a dataverse, a data universe, if you like, where the cloud services allow us to consume data from more than one service, collect that data in a data repository, and start looking at that data and examine it and using it in an intelligent fashion. I think it's going to be really, really important moving forward. So I've talked about security in terms of the data center, in terms of cyber security. The other piece that I think is really important and it's worth understanding is talking about remote working. So, we've highlighted this through COVID, that cloud-based monitoring platforms enable us to work at home. But the other piece about this is the security aspect of having home workers. Now, I can't do anything about somebody looking over your shoulder, but what we can do is make sure that no data is stored on a local piece of equipment. So if I'm working at home with a laptop, everything I'm doing is consuming cloud services. So there's nothing on my laptop. If my laptop gets pinched, something goes wrong with my laptop, if I lose it, there's nothing on the laptop that's personally identifiable would create a GDPR incident. And I think that's quite important, again, because when we look at some different types of clients that have data on the local machine, which actually accesses a database. And these things are important when we're thinking about cloud services moving forward. In terms of data management, I think we've kind of talked about that a little bit. And interoperability is going to be really important. We talk about interoperability and say, what does that mean? Well, in terms of cloud services, that means that all of our cloud services talk to each other. And I talked about the central point of data access, and that's going to be really, really important. So I might have 4 or 5 services. I might have a monitoring service, I might have a mobile warden service, a visiting service. They've all got different types of data. And all of that data needs to be accessible in one place. And what the cloud service gives us is that accessibility from the dataverse to say, all of my data points are here, but as a consumer, as a user, as a service provider, I can access that data from one point. And these things are going to be really important moving forward. And the last piece about security is again, I'll pick a monitoring center. So if I have my local monitoring center and it's on premise, I need new firewalls, I need protection, I need help from my IT team, I need huge amounts of infrastructure to defend the cybersecurity, let alone the kind of access type security, having having my servers locked away behind closed doors. Well, certainly in terms of deploying a cloud service, all of that's taken away from it. All of that is done for you. So the local IT teams don't need to worry about any of the security. They can look at test results that are commonly available from a data center, from a cloud service provider. So things like penetration testing to say, yeah, box ticked, security's fine, and we can move on. We can get on with delivering the service, which is what we want to do. We don't want to be technology experts. That's what we do as Appello. As a service user, you want to be able to deliver those services. I think, again, secure accessibility, I think we've probably talked about that and how we access the system. Upgrades are really, really important, and they link to maintenance too. So the first thing is the ability to remotely change, update, and when I say update, there's 2 pieces here. There's the update in terms of making sure the security patches are applied, making sure you have the latest systems, making sure you have the latest user interfaces. But then as more services are required, as you want to consume more services, these can be enabled remotely too. I think that's a really important point, that as a service user needs something, as you expand the service delivery, these can be enabled in minutes. This isn't something that has to take days, weeks, or even longer. Nothing needs to be installed. You enable it, it's available. And certainly for quick reaction times, and for the ease of delivering the services, it's really, really important. And the next piece is is the maintenance. So I'll pick shelter schemes as an example. Typically, you might buy an analog system, and as soon as you buy the system, you have a warranty on it, and then you have, as soon as it comes out of warranty, you have a maintenance agreement. Well, that means that every time something goes wrong, somebody jumps in their car, drives to the site and fixes it. Well, again, with a cloud service, with digital systems, that's not really necessary anymore. Unless something's fallen off the wall or somebody's actually physically broken something, the majority of what you do, is constantly monitored. So what happens is a digital support team will know that there's a fault on the site before anybody realizes. They can call into the site, they can reboot things, they can update things, they can change things, they can reconfigure things. So all of this kind of work that would need to be traditionally done on site can be done remotely. And the fixes can be applied before anybody even knows that there's a problem with the system. Now, there's always going to be an element of on-site, like I said, if somebody breaks something. But in terms of the customer experience, if a housing provider, if a monitoring centre gets an email to say, by the way, these 3 faults were fixed today, these are what they were, this is what happened, and this is what we did, nobody's even noticed, that's got to be an improvement for the customer.
Thank you, Mark. In terms of things to consider, because all of the areas that we've just described, while they sound high concept and the phrase cloud computing may sound a little bit daunting, these are just fundamentals to consider when you're involving your technology-enabled care services and when you're evaluating who you're going to partner with on those things and what technologies and what capabilities you're going to use. So Mark has given some very clear guidance about areas that are fundamentally improved through having cloud-based services, particularly the security, the accessibility, the scalability. And I think, as always, when we're making decisions, there are a number of things to consider. So over the next 2 slides, we've listed 8, which we think should be first and foremost amongst your considerations for evolving your TEC services. And firstly, and we always say this, start with the outcome in mind. What is it that you want to achieve? Don't focus on a technology, don't focus on a particular product or a particular manufacturer or service provider. Start with the outcomes you want to achieve. What is it you're looking to do for your residents or service providers or service users? Starting with that end in mind helps create a much greater art of the possible conversation than just a binary, well, we need to go from analog to digital, so I need to buy 1 box rather than the previous box. No, what you want to do quite often is provide a safer, better, more empowered living experience. Okay, so what might be some of the components of that? And it's with that big picture thinking that you can begin to unpack the transformations you want to deliver. Technology then just becomes one of the enablers of that. Always, data is going to be part of the answer. And by data, we mean insights, whatever reporting that will help target productivity in terms of dealing with the most important requirements in the most time efficient fashion. So what's the data that would help you deliver a better service? What's the data that you would be looking for your service providers and your end customers to have that would help and improve outcomes overall? In terms of chicken and egg, there's always a when do I start? When's the right time to begin with any type of transformation? Technology changes, and as a result of that, there can be a tendency to think, well, we'll just wait, we'll see how it evolves, we'll see what happens next. Embarking on a digital transformation, whether it's your platform, whether it's your equipment, whether it's your processes, whether it's a drive to paperless, there will always be new innovations in those areas. So making sure that you choose something that has a future path and is delivered by a provider who's got a track record of continued innovation is a big way of being able to decide when you start and make sure that you start in the right place. As we suggested here on the slide, there are often interim measures such as digital cloud conversion, which can help with some aspects of the problem while you concentrate on other areas that you want to be a focus area. Making sure that you're very aligned with your partner or partners is a fundamental in any type of procurement and transformation exercise, so I won't dwell on that at all. On the next four, the innovation point is key. The degree to which the companies you work with have got a proven track record of innovating in digital services and cloud-based services will build your confidence, both that they have the experience, but also they're committed to that innovation journey. That helps you with the future proofing, because you know and can reassure yourselves that if they have a track record and history of innovation, that they'll be looking to help you keep up with whatever new technologies evolve over the months and years ahead. All of this should be part of delivering a transformation which enables new ways of working. And we saw in the recent survey we did with the Housing Lin that circa 60% of housing providers think they will see an increase in remote working, as in not just during COVID, but under permanent normal situations as a result of the learnings they've had and the experiences they've had during COVID. And then finally, the last point I think we'd leave you with on this particular aspect is make sure that you're building a broad ecosystem of partners who are capable of collaboration and willing to collaborate. Quite often, organizations who believe they have potentially a lead in the market or have a market dominating position or perceive a market dominating position will be sniffy or even absolutely opposed to scale collaboration. And I think it's fundamental to try and work with organizations, and certainly we would pride ourselves on the degree to which we try and interoperate with and collaborate with other organizations in the sector to help deliver better outcomes for customers and their end customers. So if those are considerations about going to cloud, if we move on to the next slide, you can see how from an Appello point of view, these start to knit together for us. We've got a suite of cloud services, and we'll give you an overview of those, just a very brief overview of those in a second or two. And they broadly support the two areas of our business. One, our Careline monitoring services, which is both the monitoring solutions we provide, as well as the CareNet as a platform and out-of-hours services. And on the other side of our business, we've got a suite which we are expanding of capabilities. Smart Living Solutions has set the benchmark and continues to set the benchmark for communal living digital tech capabilities. Smart Connect, we launched very recently, follows in that footsteps of using proven digital technology without perhaps as much feature capability, but still with the ability to deliver future value services. And then Smart Life is a product we'll be launching very soon, and we're holding another webinar on that in a few weeks' time, which I know a number of you have already signed up to, and we're confident will be of great interest. I'm going to just play you a short video now, which tries to explain how these things knit together. So, Ian, if we could run the video.
Appello Appello Cloud Services are for a new era of digital technology-enabled care. Housing and care providers, big and small, are using Appello Cloud Services to capitalize on innovation, lower costs, and enhance the lives of their customers. Managing devices and estates, customer management and insights, digital call handling and analog to digital conversion are all available via the internet as part of Appello Cloud Services. We have created an open environment designed to provide you with the tools you need to integrate services from your favorite innovative technology providers, and created with flexibility in mind to suit how your organizations operate today and in the future. Appello Cloud Services delivers safer services for customers, greater access to customer and service data, remote access and management, secure integration engine, providing you with everything you need for great technology-enabled care.
There were 6 products which we've got within our cloud suite. I'll just pick out a couple of them because they are so pertinent to the discussion we're having today, because they exemplify how being cloud-based brings advantage. I'll start with the digital bridge. I'm not going to cover all of these, but I'll start with the digital bridge because we were conscious as an organization that thousands and thousands of devices, well, no, it's hundreds of thousands of devices, both in communal living settings and in independent living settings, need to be digitally enabled over the course of the years, and not that many years now before BT retires the analog network. That is an enormous amount of undertaking. And while that's happening, at the same time, because of the digitalization of BT's network, we know that first-time call failure is increasing. And first-time call failure, for those not familiar with it, is the challenge that analog telecare devices have traversing modern digital networks. And somewhere between 5 and 15% of calls from analog telecare devices will potentially fail first time around, and this varies by geography and so on, but will potentially fail first time around. They will reattempt, but when you've already got a 20 to 90 second call setup time, it's a great risk to life and a dreadful customer experience that for the end user, for the customer, for the end customer, to have to wait for that connection to take place. Rather than have to physically go to every site and install a analog to digital conversion, we've created a cloud-based service that means, provided the end number is one that we have registered in the Appello Digital Bridge, we are able to take that call from the nearest local telephony exchange, immediately convert it into digital signaling protocol and hand it to its end destination. And that is a real safety and well-being benefit for end customers, as well as being an opportunity for housing providers and local authorities to overcome the duty of care risk they have of first-time call failure, while at the same time giving themselves a little bit of extra breathing space to decide what type of digital technologies they deploy for those end customers. So that's a great example of how cloud enables a powerful solution, but without it being as obtrusive or as costly for a housing provider as having to pay for and afford a visit to every single end location. I'll pick up 2 other examples. SBR, Single Best Record, is our tool for our monitoring customers to have their housing managers or on-site staff be able to see and remotely update and interrogate the data for their residents. Should they need to update a contact number, should they wish to arrange carers access. All of those sorts of things can be done remotely through the SVR, which is a powerful tool. And its sister capability, IO, is a data analysis. So it can take a number of inputs from multiple different well-being devices, be that the Apple Watch, be that a Fitbit, be that motion detection within an apartment, or be that genuine medical grade devices. And it can take inputs from all of those and create a well-being index. This, we think, is a capability which over the years ahead will become more and more powerful for housing providers and local authorities to really understand the dynamics of certain customers who have perhaps a trajectory of their health and well-being that is concerning. So those are some examples of cloud. CareNet is our cloud-based monitoring platform, available both as a monitoring service and as a platform for those who want to upgrade their own monitoring platforms to one that's proven to be leading in digital capabilities. HQ is the services that are accessible, the insights that are accessible to housing providers who've installed our smart living solution. And Nexus is a way of managing an estate of multiple devices, all remotely. These are all real and proven capabilities. And if we move on to the next slide, they are ones which we think play a key part in the technology-enabled care services landscape for years to come. This next product we think is going to do likewise, and this is just a teaser for Smart Life, the product we're going to launch on our next webinar. So Ian, play the video. So we use the best background music from any of the films that haven't been released at the cinemas recently to try and drum up a little bit of drama around that. But in all seriousness, we genuinely believe Smart Life is going to be a really important product for the sector. And we're excited about launching that to you all on the 25th of May. We've already got well over 100 registrations. So hopefully, as a result of today and the few weeks ahead, it'll be even more than that, a very exciting moment for us as an organisation. However, that wasn't what we wanted to talk about. We wanted to finish and conclude with your questions, and of course, we'll be taking those as well as giving our own thoughts and observations about anything else that you want a view on in this next Q&A session. I can see we've already got a number of them queuing up. So, Ian, if you can take us off presentation mode, and let's see where the questions take us. Just as a reminder, folks, and as I say, I'm sure you are extremely and more familiar with Zoom than you'd ever hoped or imagined you would be. But to ask a question, you just click on the icon on the toolbar that's either at the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, depending on how you've got it configured. Ian's going to be our question host. So Ian, if you can do your best to digest them and read them out as we go, that'd be great.
Certainly. So the first one that we have in, Tim, is, are all of the Appello products connected to the cloud?
Mark, as our commercial director, you're well placed to answer that.
Yeah, so the answer is yes, they are connected to the cloud, but it's very I think it's important to make the point that whilst all of our products are cloud connected, they're cloud connected for maintenance, for monitoring, for updates, for upgrades, and for certain parts of using the equipment. The key to be very clear of with the Appello products is if the cloud's not available, they all still work. Now, the monitoring platform's slightly different, but you have resilience in there. But in terms of outfield equipment, they'll still work.
Good. Okay. Thanks.
Next
Not like
question.
I wouldn't know that one, but just so Mark gets to put his own particular perspectives on it, being such an industry veteran. Okay, Ian, next question.
Next question is, do you offer a cloud-based contact center if I still want my own?
Okay, so I'm guessing that means, can we pass services to somebody else's monitoring center? And if that wasn't the question, the answer is yes. We can pass services to other monitoring centers. And if the question was, do you want a monitoring platform for your own center that is proven to be digital and scalable, then yes, we can provide that as well. Pick up with us afterwards or clarify the question if we've misunderstood.
Next question is, with a digital converter, this also gives benefits on dual call paths. Does the digital bridge have the benefit to allow more than calls from site to be answered?
So from a single line out, there is only going to be a single call out available. So if you look at the state of dispersed alarms, which are plugged into a single analog telephone line, then it will just be a single line out from that. One of the things which the Appello Digital Bridge does, which typical analog to digital converters don't do, though, is it improves the speech experience. We replicate it in a two-way speech rather than the typical analog simplex one person speaks, walkie-talkie style speech. So it's not just a safety benefit, but it is also that benefit in terms of an improved customer experience. Hopefully that answers the question. Ian?
And on a similar question on Digital Bridge, are you able to give a comparison in cost between Digital Bridge and a digital converter for an analog ward and call system?
Yes, so we've deliberately priced the Appello Digital Bridge to be very competitive and in some instances cheaper than that capability. So if you drop a note to mark.stratford@appello.co.uk outlining the sort of size and scale of the estate or number of devices that you want to cover, then we'll work out what that looks like for you.
Great.
And another Digital Bridge question, which is, do you consider Digital Bridge to be a short or long-term solution?
Definitely a short-term solution. What the Appello Digital Bridge doesn't overcome all of the ills of analog telephony. So by no means do we think this is any more, and this is why we chose the name bridge. This is a temporary stopgap, in the same way that any type of analog to digital conversion is a stopgap. There are so many benefits of genuinely digital services that just creating the speech path capability, just overcoming the first time call failure risk, is only scratching the surface of this.
Next question is, if we have an analog platform, can we use your digital equipment?
So the answer is yes. Mark, do you want to explain how and why?
Yes, so there's two ways. We can use the bridge to take digital calls and convert them back to analog. And I know that's not an ideal situation, but what it does, it takes a very clean, clear digital protocol, converts it into a crisp analog protocol and delivers it to the monitoring center. So it gets over the first time call failure rate, it gets over any round trip delay issues. and it sends a very clearly defined protocol to the monitoring platform. That's the first thing that we can do. And the second thing we can do in terms of some of the alarm systems, we could signal an analog protocol into the analog platform as a temporary measure until such times as the platform's upgraded to digital.
It's fair to say that a very, very large provider of telecare monitoring platforms hasn't yet cracked digital capabilities, and as a result of that, customers who have purchased and want to progress with smart living solutions and other digital services have asked us, and we have it working for them, to translate our digital services into an analog signal for those monitoring centres. So as Mark says, proven in the real world and can work in either direction for your respective benefits. Ian, what's next?
Just going back on something we've already talked about, it's when you say short-term solution for the digital bridge, could you give more of an idea of length of time?
Well, we plan to run the service until end of 25, but in terms of, do we think it is advantageous to keep old equipment out there? No. Now, we've got a vested interest, right? We're a provider of digital services, so there's a school of thought that says, well, of course you would say that, but if you compare smart living solutions and the video door entry, the apartment to apartment calling, the non-stigmatizing appearance of it versus a traditional warden call system, then it doesn't matter how long you make that warden call system extend its life for, it's never going to fulfill the life enhancing benefits of smart living solutions. So hopefully that's more clarity. We would see that as soon as your organization has decided on the path of digital transformation it wants to take, then it should undertake that journey as soon as practical. But we recognize there are budget constraints. There are still significantly, well, there are some very, very large estates which need to be migrated over a period of time. And in doing so, we shouldn't leave those people who aren't at the forefront of digital transformation being unable to have at least the protection against first-time call failure and the risk to life that creates.
Brilliant. Does the closure of 2G networks mean we should hold off on any decisions?
So I think that's 3G networks actually. But Mark, do you want to explain that one?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's 3G networks. So 2G networks are going to be around for some time yet, and we've got no drop dead sunset date for the 2G from any of the network providers that we work with. 3G is very different because it shares a spectrum, shares a frequency with 4G. So it means that service providers can repurpose 3G masts for 4G to use for 4G spectrum. So, for example, in the UK, Vodafone have actually said they're already sunsetting 3G, and they don't expect 3G to be available much past the middle of next year. And that's right across the UK. So if you consider areas where Vodafone might be working now, 3G signal will disappear almost overnight once they repurpose the masts.
A significant factor to bear in mind for those people who are deploying dispersed alarms, which are SIM based.
Definitely.
Okay, Ian, next question.
Yeah, we had 3 questions left, so if anybody does have any questions, please put them in now. So the next one is remote working part of the strategy at Appello?
Well, definitely. I think like a lot of CEOs, if you'd asked me that question 18 months ago, I'd have said, well, it's something we're evaluating, but we're not sure if it's in the benefit of our employees and our customers. And having now seen at first hand the number of benefits we have from a mixed estate of people being in office and being out of office. And I'm specifically thinking about our monitoring operators, our telecare monitoring operators. We've seen that a number of things have materialized, but a couple of ones which are really important is that our ability to handle peaks and troughs in traffic, unexpected call spikes, is really smoothed by having the ability to get people to log on from home for half an hour or so. We do overtime bursts of right down to 15 minutes for employees who want to participate in that, and it's been well received. And as a result of that, we've continued to deliver really strong performance. We've not missed the KPI, both the 60-second or the 180-second during any point of COVID. So we're really confident that this is a benefit both to customers and to the organization in terms of agility and flexibility. And of course, the second part of it is that we have historically built our business continuity plans very much around what happens if building A goes up in smoke or is hit by a flood. Well, we move to building B. Well, the last 15 months have proven, and we've recut our BCP, our business continuity plan, to be based very much on this dynamic of we've got 2 live sites anyway, plus at any one time we've got a selection of home workers. So it's significantly increased our resilience against any type of natural or ungodly acts. So hopefully that answers the question thoroughly.
Next question is, we've had to regularly visit sites throughout COVID to perform maintenance tasks. Is this not required with Appello?
It's required less, that's for sure. As Mark indicated, a number of faults with smart living solutions are diagnosed and or fixed remotely. Now, that does, as he indicated, that doesn't mean we avoid all physical maintenance visits, but there is a lot less physical maintenance required, because if a customer reports an issue, there's a very decent chance, and usually roughly 2 out of 3 of those we can restore remotely. So yeah, it's been a help during COVID to be less troublesome to our customers by having to visit sites.
Next question is, they say, sorry, I missed your comments with regards to SIMs and 3G. We have over 400 customers with GSMs. What are the risks, and how soon will these have an impact on the technology?
Well, the first thing to say is you should speak to your service provider, so whoever provided the SIMs or provided the equipment, about who the underlying provider is and what their commitments are in terms of how long the network those devices are resting on will be able to function. As Mark indicated earlier, Vodafone have been relatively transparent about their plans. For each there's a different scenario for each operator, because I guess they have different pressing needs in terms of the degree to which they have to free up frequency for the transition to 4G and 5G. But certainly 3G has a sunset period to it, just as analog telephony does for telecare as well. Hopefully that helps answer your question, but if you want more detail, we're happy to try and help.
Last 2 questions are with regards to the digital bridge. So you said that the digital bridge can forward traffic into any number of our choosing. Does that mean that I could direct calls into an ARC that doesn't have any use of Appello products for its call monitoring platform?
Yes. In simple terms, yes. We have to make sure that the number is one that we've got loaded into the Appello Digital Bridge. But from a technical point of view, there is no reason, and we're already handing calls off to non-Appello monitoring centres, as I mentioned, some some monitoring centres whose platforms are provided by the largest provider of telecare monitoring platforms hasn't yet developed a capability to be able to fully receive the industry verified version of Now IP. I mean, Mark, keep me honest on this if that's not strictly true, but certainly we've had to help a number of customers have some type of conversion landing on their end devices, not on our devices. So hopefully that answers your question.
And the last question is, are all protocols supported? If not, what protocols are supported?
In terms of the Appello Digital Bridge, do you think that relates to?
I think that relates to the digital bridge, yes.
Okay, Mark, you're better at that than I am.
So in terms of digital protocols, we support Now IP, which is BS85221-2. We also support the SCAPE version, so which is EN 50134 Part 9. So that's the 2 digital protocols that we support. In terms of analog protocols, we support any open analog protocol. So BS8521, TT92, TT old, TT new. What we can't support is a closed protocol like STMF or TT21 because they're owned by Tunstall.
Okay, hopefully that's comprehensive. Ian?
That's it with the questions. There's no more questions.
Great stuff. So there's 3 comments on chat. Are any of those questions, or are they just people?
I've covered them as well.
Okay, well done. Great stuff. Well, folks, we've run pretty much exactly to time. So I'm very, very appreciative that you joined us. I genuinely hope you found some useful insights and nuggets from this. As always, these are about 2 things: 1, education, and 2, shallowly pushing and promoting our own services. So I hope we've done both of those in equal measure, and we look forward very much to seeing you on the next sessions of these. 25th of May is the Smart Life launch, and then we've got more webinars planned for June and July. And Ian, it must be time soon to start thinking about what face-to-face roadshows look like again. But you know, that's for.
They're in the planning. They're in the planning.
Great stuff. All right. Well, I look forward to seeing some of you in person, and thank you again for your time and attendance. We hope you found that useful. Please feel free to disconnect.